Hello crafty friends, welcome all of you back to my channel. Welcome to Pretty Pink Craft Room. I am excited to share with you today another simple, easy, one sheet wonder crafty creation that we can use with one 12 by 12 paper to create the base. Of course, as you know, the decorations and everything, you would need more paper to embellish it how you would like it to look, but it is essentially at the base just a one sheet wonder, a 12 by 12. So let me show you what I've created with that. My goal was to create something with like a file folder edge on it. So I did create that, and then I also wanted to create an envelope on the back. So this is, well, let's start with the front. Let me take my time, slow down, and start with the front. So the front is, of course, a spring themed flip book, and I just used some paper that I had in my stash. I used some ephemera and some chipboard stickers that were left over from the paper pack to decorate the front of it. I used some lace underneath as well, and then when you open it, there's this little flip here. Let me get in frame. There's a flip here that I used some vellum that I had in my stash. I was inspired to start using more vellum by Pink Strawberries. She uses vellum in her creations and it always looks so pretty, so I had to, you know, incorporate that in my creation as well. If you are not aware of her channel, she is an amazing crafter, especially with these types of one sheet wonders, flat mail, that type of thing. Please check her channel out. She gives great inspiration where you can just take a creation and make it your own, add a little bit here, a twist there, and you just make it your own, and it just looks beautiful. So hope you're checking out her channel too. So again, this is just a flip page here. Then on this second page, I just did another flip here. Didn't add anything there, but this is kind of a tuck spot and added a piece of ephemera there. And then when you flip it, here's a little pocket. I just used some leftover vellum from this part here. This was a scrapped. I had a little bit of leftover vellum and I just made it into a pocket, a little tuck pocket here, and then added more ephemera there, added some more lace that was left over from the lace that I used on the front. Then there's a pocket here, and I just added more ephemera in here, more journaling spots, add some enamel dots there. Again, this is a file folder page with the edge making it a file folder, and I'll show you how I did that as we create it together. Then on this side, I just added another tuck spot, put some more ephemera inside like so, and that goes here. On this one, I made a pocket and a belly band. So this is the belly band, added more ephemera. It's just loaded full of goodies and ephemera here. And then this is the pocket, and I added another more journaling spots there. And that both tucks in here. And then this is the back page, and then when you turn it to the back, there is this envelope. And again, the envelope is also included in what you can do with just the 12 by 12 base sheet. So I created the envelope and created this tuck spot here, added this here into the tuck spot. The envelope I just sealed with a Velcro dot, and then has a pocket here with even more ephemera pieces or little pieces of journaling spots that can be used here. It's not a super deep pocket, but it's a really nice pocket and just looks really cute on the back. And then when I added the envelope, I did it as a tuck spot. You could make it just like a full pocket, but I made it more so a tuck spot to make even more room for other pieces of ephemera to go inside there, other journaling spots too. So I just wanted to make sure there was more than enough room for all of those goodies there. So that is the completed project. This turned out really nicely. I was so happy and pleased with how it turned out. So I just wanted to make sure I shared it with you guys and do the tutorial with you so you can see how I created it. And if this is something that interests you, that you like to create, I hope you will stick around and craft with me. So I have this one sheet of 12 by 12 paper. It is double-sided paper, as you can see. And so the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and cut off this branding strip and discard that. Okay, so for the 12 by 12 paper, you're essentially going to be cutting one side at 5.5 by 12 and one side at 6.5 by 12. However, if you are using directional paper, or if there's a certain part of the paper that you really want to be your cover, then this is where you might want to do some pre-planning or really pay attention to how you score it. So whatever side you cut at 6.5 by 12, that is going to be your cover. So as I look at this page, I know that I want this corner as my cover. So I'm going to cut this at the 6.5, and then the top part will be the remaining 5.5 by 12. So let me go ahead and extend the arm here, and I'm just going to cut this paper down to 6.5. Okay, so now I have these two sheets. This is 5.5 by 12, and this is 6.5 by 12. So let's start with the 6.5 by 12, since that is our cover. So I'm going to put this to the side for a moment, and then just work just on this 6.5 by 12 sheet. So the first thing I'm going to do is I need to get my cover cut out. And to cut my cover needs to be 4.5 by 6.5. So again, depending on where you want your cover, I want this as my cover, so I'm going to cut that down to 4.5. So this is my cover at 4.5 by 6.5. And I made some little sheets like these so that you could remember that this is the cover and this is the 4.5 by 6.5 sheet. So I'm going to put that to the side. The next part of this remaining sheet, that what we cut down from the 6.5, I need to cut my back. This is the back of my project. And so the back I'm going to cut down to 4.25 by 6.5. So I'm just going to turn it over here and cut it down to 4.25 by 6.5. Okay, so this is my back, and I'm just going to add a little sticky note here so that I know that this is the back and this is 4.25 by 6.5. Then what I have remaining here, I'm going to cut this down to 2 inches. I hate to cut off at this little duck's face. I'm trying to see, maybe if I do it this way, is that gonna still? Oh yeah, that's much better. Okay, so I'll cut this one down at 2. Okay, so this is 2 inches by 6.5, and that's gonna serve as a pocket for me. So 2 inches by 6.5. And then what I have, this strip remaining is 1.25 by 6.5, and I'm gonna keep that. So let me just line it up so that you can see again. So this was 4.5 by 6.5, and that's my cover. This is my back at 4.25 by 6.5. This is a pocket at 2 by 6.5, and this was my leftover strip, which was 1.25 by 6.5. And all 4 of these pieces would equal out to the 6.5 by 12. So if you want to take a screenshot so that it's better able for you to see how it all comes out to the 12 by 12, then certainly you can do that at this moment if you so choose. So this is how I kind of kept all the pages together when I was trying to design how I wanted it to look. So these are coming from that first strip of the 6.5 by 12. So then we have remaining this 5.5 by 12. And the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to cut this down at 5.75 by 5, and it is going to serve as my second page. So because this is 5.5, in order for me to get 5.75, I need to cut it this way. And I hope all of this is making sense to you guys. I don't want to confuse you, but hopefully this kind of breaking it down this way makes it a little more easier. So this is I cut it down at 5 3/4, so then I need to cut it down to 5. So I'm going to take off 1/2 inch here. So this sheet is my second page, and it's 5 3/4 by 5. This little strip I want to keep. I'm going to use that. And actually, I even have a little sticky note for the little 1/2 inch, for the little piece here. Okay. And then what I have left, I should have left, is a 6 1/4 by 5 1/2 sheet. And that is going to serve as my envelope for the back. And that's what I have. Okay. So I'll bring it back out just so that you can see how everything came together. So again, this was my 5 3/4 by 5. And this came from that as well. Oh, I'm sorry. It's this way. Sorry. So this came from that, and then this came from that as well. At least I have it. Do I have it right? Let me see. There we go. I'm sorry. I had it all like a puzzle piece. I had to have it all ordered in the right way. Okay. So ultimately, all of this turns out to be 5 1/2 by 12 when you add it all up, but it breaks down into these 3 pieces. So again, if you want to take a screenshot, if that may help you, it certainly helped me having these little sticky notes so I can keep everything together and make sure I had all my pages lined up together. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and start assembling our little folio. Okay, you all, when I had paused the video, I realized that I had cut something wrong. I sincerely apologize. I mistakenly cut it down too short, and it made all of the dimensions on the second half right. The first half is still fine. The original 6 1/2 by 12 is still fine, but this 5 1/2 by 12, I cut it wrong. So this 5 3/4 by 5, I had originally cut it down to 5 1/2 by 5, and that was my mistake. So 5 3/4 by 5. So the way I said it was correct, but the way I did it was not correct. So this is still my page 2. I brought out another scrap piece of paper and made this 5 3/4 by 5. This is my page 2. That left me with 1/2 inch of a strip, which is 1/2 inch by 5 3/4, as you can see here. And I still have my back, which was my envelope, which is 5 1/2 by 6 1/4. So I hope that still makes sense. I hope I did not confuse you too much with putting it together, and hopefully by laying it out like this, you really can see. You also can see that just by having the measurements, you don't necessarily have to use a 12 by 12 piece of paper. You can just pull in pieces of paper that fit these measurements of whatever scraps you have left together that will work cohesively in one project. So it doesn't necessarily have to be cutting down all these different variety of pieces from one 12 by 12. I just wanted to show you how you could conceivably do it from a 12 by 12, but it's not necessary. As long as you have the dimensions, you can use pieces of paper that fit those dimensions that can be from variety of papers in the same paper pack. So hopefully that makes sense, and I did not confuse you too much. Again, I sincerely apologize for that error. So let's now try to do some scoring so we can put our project together. So I'm bringing back in the sheet that is my cover, and I still have the sticky on here so you can see what I'm using, and I'm just going to bring out my scoreboard so we can do some scoring. I have my cover sheet here in my scoreboard, and I'm on the 4 1/2 inch side, and I'm only going to score at 1/2 inch here. Okay, then I'm going to rotate this counterclockwise so that this is still the top of my project, and I'm going to score at 1 1/4 inch. Okay, so I scored at 1/2 inch, then I rotated counterclockwise and scored at 1 1/4 inch. So that 1 1/4 inch panel, that's the top of your project. So I also wanted to create my own file folder tab. So I'm sure you may have, tools or utensils that you can use to create that, but I just wanted to create it for myself. So the width of my Let me bring back in the project. So the width of this little file folder tab here is 2 1/4 inches. So I'm just gonna line my ruler up at 2 1/4 inches and just make a mark for myself, like so. And then I'm going to score 1/2 inch all the way up to that mark. So that'll help me in cutting it and knowing exactly. So I only scored all the way to that little mark here that I made. It's kind of hard with this paper to see, but I'm going to cut all of this off here. So I'll show you how I'm doing the cutting here too. Okay. So for the first thing I'm going to do is there's this little rectangular square here. I'm going to cut that off. I'm going to angle cut to where those score lines meet, and then I'm going to cut it off here. And you want to cut it off including the score mark itself so that you have more of a finished edge here. Okay, so I just cut off just this little rectangular here. Then I'm also going to angle cut the bottom here just to miter that edge. So now I have this sheet like so. Okay. So because this is a longer cut here, I'm actually going to bring in my scoreboard. I'm sorry, my cutting board, because I do not trust myself to cut this in a straight line. So I'm just going to line it up here on my cutting board. I'm going to pay attention to where I made that mark of where I want my file folder to be. Remember, we made that mark of the 2 1/4 inch, and I'm just going to sink my blade where that is and then cut the rest of it off. Okay, so then I've only cut off this flap here. I've made my mark of where I want my file folder to start, and I'm just going to angle cut like so. Now, to make sure my angle cuts are matching, what I do is I take the strip that I just cut off, and I line it up to the edge here and then make a mark for myself. So at least I know however I cut it, I did it evenly on both sides. Even if one side kind of looks crazy, I still made sure that the other side matches it. Let me see. Just making sure I lined it up right. Yeah. And then I'm just making a mark with a pencil. And then I will cut that off. Okay, so now I have this file folder design on my edge here that I can use. So I don't like this edge here because I didn't cut all the way off. I left that score line there, so I'm just going to cut that off just a little bit. Sink my blade in and just cut the rest of that off. And then I'll just take my scissors and do the rest. Okay, so hopefully that doesn't look too bad. Okay, so now that you have cut off and you've created the file folder, now this panel, this 1 1/4 inch panel, just folds under. And this is where I can clean up anything I have left hanging here. So this folds on under, and then that becomes our little flap on the first page. The 1/2 inch flap here also folds under. So both flaps are folding under. And it may seem a little bit like, oh, this is a lot for a little flip book, but once you do it once, then you'll see that it's not difficult at all. It's just a few cuts here and there. And of course, this is just a base. So again, you all can take this design and alter it to how you want it to look. You know, maybe you want it to be a little bit different, or you want it to look a little bit different. Then you can certainly feel free to do that. And this can just serve as maybe some inspiration as to how you may want it to look. Okay. So again, this was my cover that we created from that original 4.5 by 6.5 piece. So I'm going to put that to the side now, and we're going to work on our second page. So if you remember, and I will pull it back out, our second page was this one. This is 5 3/4 by 5. This is our page 2. And again, that's why I wanted to make sure I kept it with a sticky note on here so that it would be easier to see. So let me pull back out my scoreboard. And on the 5-inch side of the second page of 5 3/4 by 5, I'm going to score that at 1/2 inch. So I only am doing this one score at 1/2 inch here. However, I also want to do my little file folder tab. So again, I'm going to come down 2 1/4, make myself a little ticker here so I know where I'm at, and then score the rest of the way down at 1/2 inch. So you can follow the 1/2 inch, wait till you get to where you need to be, and then score the rest of the way down. Okay. And then again, I'm going to do the same thing that we did before. I'm going to go ahead and actually, let's go ahead and do the mitering of the edges on this side first, and like so. And let's fold this under like so. So we have our edge here that will serve as our hinging for attaching our pages together. And then on the 1/2 inch panel that we did on the right side, I can go ahead and cut that off. Again, you can freehand this, of course. It would probably be better if you freehand, but I am such a horrible freehand cutter that I have to use my cutter even for this little bit here. So now I've cut that flap off, I can go ahead and angle cut like so, and then use this piece to serve as my guide on how to angle cut the left hand side. So I'll use that as my guide. I'll make myself a little mark here, and then I will cut it off like so. Okay. And I think my cutting board is just, the blade may need to be changed because it's not cutting sharp edges like that. Okay, so this again was my page 2. So page 2, 5 3/4 by 5. So I'm just going to attach page 1 and page 2 together. And the way I'm going to attach it is I'm going to move this flap out of the way just so that I can see better. And I'm going to center it like so on top of each other. So I'm just centering the first and the second page, lining it up, and then I'm going to apply glue on this 1/2 inch panel and affix it towards the top. Affix it on top of page 2. So the 1/2 inch panel, I know normally I put the 1/2 inch panel underneath the page that I'm adding it on, but I think on this particular project, putting it on top made it even more flat, so that's why I went ahead and did that. So now you can see those two pages are attached together, and this was your 1/2 inch flap. I'm sorry, your 1 1/4 inch flap that was part of the front page. So now you have your page 1 and your page 2 all together, and that's how it comes out. Okay, so now let's add the back page. The back page was 4 1/4 by 6 1/2, 4 1/4 by 6 1/2, and that page we're just going to add onto the back here. And it should be adding, and you should be able to center it onto the back like so. So I'm just going to apply glue on this 1/2 inch panel. We didn't have to do any cutting or scoring on this page 3, on this back page, which is 4 1/4 by 6 1/2. So I'm just going to add my glue to my 1/2 inch flap here. And then again, centering it on the top of that back page. You guys know how much I love the layering. If you've seen any of my previous videos, you guys may know or remember that how much I really do love layering things. I like when they have a gradual look like that all the way around. So that's how I wanted to make sure it came out too. So we have our cover with our flap here. We have our page 2. We have our back page all lined up together. Okay, so the next thing we will do is we will add the pocket. And if you remember, our pocket was 2 by 6.5. So I'm going to bring in my pocket, and that goes attached here. However, even though I love this duck, I'm going to alternate to the back like so, because then it'll really create some contrast and some interest like that too. I really like that. Okay, so I'm just going to make this as a pocket, and just by adding glue to 3 sides, I'm not going to even score anything, and we're just going to add that to the bottom. I'm sorry, to the side of our back page. The one thing I do recommend is that you try to stay away from that score line, because then it could impede your folding, or it just could make things not lay as flat as they should. So I'm just trying to make sure I have everything evenly lined up. Okay, great. So this now becomes my pocket right here, and I just added glue, and again, as you can see, I stayed away from that score line right there, if you can see that right there. So now all of my pages like that, and you can see the contrast in the colors and the design, and I think that's really cute. I love that. Okay, so now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to work on that envelope, and you'll see how easy that is. To create our envelope, we had a sheet that measured 5.5 by 6.25. 5.5 by 6.25 was left as part of that 12 by 12. What we're going to do is on the 5.5 side, we're going to cut it into 2 strips that are 2 3/4. So I have 2 strips, 2 3/4 by 6.25. So this was originally together, and we just cut it down by 2 3/4 each side, so that these will serve as our envelopes. So let me move my cutter out of the way for a moment. So at this point, you want to decide which part do you want as your top, which part do you want as the bottom of your envelope. You could also choose at this point to bring in a totally different design of paper. Maybe you want some more contrast, especially in looking at the back of your project. Maybe you want something a bit different. I'm just going to keep it simple. I'm going to leave it with the entire pattern running through the entire envelope. I'm going to use this as my top, and this is my bottom. So first, let's work on our bottom part, and I'll move the top out of the way and move our little sticky note out of the way. So with our bottom, what you want to do to create your envelope is you want to find your center. So the center of this is 3 1/8. So I'm just making a little mark for myself. Because the paper is 6 1/4 wide, my center is 3 1/8. From that center, I want to go down by 1 inch. So I want to make myself a little mark, and it's just easier with the scoreboard because it helps you keep everything even. And then I'll go down by 1 inch like so, and again make myself a little mark. So I started at 3 1/8 inch, just making sure I'm still in frame. 3 1/8 inch, and I came down to 1 inch, and I made myself a mark here. So from that mark that you made of that 1 inch from the edge, then you want to draw a line and connect to the top corners. So I'm going to draw a line and connect to the top right corner, and then I'm going to draw a line and connect to the left corner. And I just want to make sure my ruler is lined up right. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I just drew some lines to connect each of those to the center, 3 1/8, and came down 1 inch like so, and then drew these lines here. So then I can bring back in my cutting board, and again, you could certainly freehand this. However, again, because I am not a great cutter, I am just going to take advantage of this little cutter and just use it to create my envelope. So I just lined up that line, that pencil mark line that I previously made, lined it up in my cutter, and then I can sink my blade into the center here, and then make sure everything is lined up, and then I can make my cutting like so. And then I will do the same thing with my other pencil mark, line that up, and then cut to the center. And I cut a little bit too deep, but that's okay, we can fix that. But it comes out like so. And you want to keep this because this can be used for decoration, and I'll show you how you can use that. But this becomes the bottom of your envelope. You just made those cuts, and now you've created the bottom of your envelope. Okay, so I will set that to the side now. Now we're going to work on the top of our envelope. And again, this was just part of our envelope. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to find our center. Our center is again the 3 1/8. And this time we're going to come down I'm sorry, I just wanted to make sure I had it right here. Okay, so we're going to come down by 1.5 inch. So from here you can do it on this side with your scoreboard and just make yourself a little mark at 1.5 inches. And then on this side you can use your ruler to make a mark at 1.5 inches. Then you're going to do the same thing. You're just going to connect the dots, connect them all together. It's just hard to see with the camera above your head, and you're just trying to make sure you have everything marked properly. Let me just make sure. Because I could not see those lines. I really couldn't see it. Yeah, see, I had it marked in the wrong place. Okay. That's better. So yeah, I really couldn't see where I had made those marks at. Okay. So now I can draw the lines here and make them all connect. So I'm just connecting one side, and then I'll connect the other side. Okay, perfect. And that should be the middle, 3 1/8. Okay, perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay, so then you're just going to make those same cuts by lining that up with your cutter, or even just cutting it by freehand and just make those cuts to create the top of your envelope. So I have cut these two pieces off of the edge of the top of my envelope, and I still wanted to lay it here so that you could see that. Also, what I want to do with the top is I want to score that at 1/2 inch so that I can attach the two together. So this was the top of my envelope, this is the bottom, and these are the two strips that are the two corners that we cut off from the top of it. Okay, so we can still use these, so I'm going to set them to the side. But for the top, this 1/2 inch flap, I'm just going to fold it under and crease it down. Okay, so this is the top of my envelope, this is the bottom of my envelope. So we need to attach these two together. So part of the 12 by 12, what we had left over, is this little 1 1/4 by 6 1/2 inch strip. And remember, we were going to keep that. So I'm going to just discard this little sticky note. You can see that it was the 1 1/4 to 6 1/2 inch strip. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach it to the back flap of this 1/2 inch panel here of the top of my envelope. So it's going to get attached just like that. And again, I'm kind of staying away from the score line, so I'm just about a 1/16 of an inch from that score line, but I'm going to attach it and then we'll cut off the excess here. So I'm just going to apply glue onto this 1/2 inch panel here. And then attach this here. Line it up, make it even. Okay. And you have this little overhang right here, and that part I'm just going to cut off. And that's not even straight, you guys. I'm telling you, I'm such a poor freehand cutter. It's just insane how bad it is. My goodness. That's why I don't trust myself cutting freehand anything. Okay, so now you can bring back in the bottom of your envelope. So this is where you're going to attach the two together like so. So again, I'm coming down about a 1/16 of an inch from that score line, and I'm just going to apply glue on the edges here to attach the two together. So I just apply glue on just these little edges here, just a thin strip of glue, and we can attach them on, line them up, and attach it like so. I'm just giving that glue a little bit of time to set in and to make sure I'm even here. I don't think I'm a bit even, all the way even. That looks a bit better. Okay. So now you can see your envelope closes like so, and it opens, and there it is. So now if we bring back in our project, this is our project, we turn it over to the back. This is where we can now attach our little envelope onto the back like so, and that looks very pretty with that lined up like that too. So this is where you can decide if you want to make a full pocket or if you want to just do a tuck spot and just only glue the L, the bottom, sorry, the right and the bottom here. So I'm just going to do the right and the bottom like I did on the previous project, kind of stick to the same thing, making sure I'm right side up, and then lining this up, centering it on the back, and there it goes. Now you have your envelope on the back, and I need to erase all these pencil marks. I'll do that in a moment. But now let's just go through the whole project, and you can see what all you have here. So I have my front cover with my flap. I have my page 2, and each have my little file folder tabs here that we created. This is our back piece. There's a pocket here, a large pocket, and then when you turn to the back, there is our envelope. So these are the strips that we had left over too. We have this little strip here, and you could choose to make this like a tuck spot on top of your envelope. I am not going to do that on this particular one. I did it on the previous one. You saw me do it here. I have that little tuck spot, but I don't want to add it here. I love this little design here, and I don't want to take away from that. You could also choose to use these other pieces that we cut off to create the envelope. Remember, we cut these triangles. You could use that to add design here, or even if you wanted to add some kind of a design on this side. And that creates another pocket or another tuck spot like so. So you could choose to use these pieces that you cut off in all different ways inside your folio, however you want to use it. It's kind of directional, so you may be a little bit limited, but you can use it in different ways inside of the folio instead of discarding those. But that is the base of the project itself and the construction of it. And I hope that you guys enjoyed that. So I'm going to, as my usual, I'm going to pause the video, try to decorate it a little bit, and come back and show you guys the final look of how it all came together. And maybe that'll even give you more inspiration to create one of your own. So I'll be back shortly. Here's a look at our final completed project. This was so fun to put together and to create and even to decorate. I used excuse me, some ephemera that I had left over that complemented the paper pack. There was a word in there that, or a couple words in there that I was able to use here too on the front. And then when you open it, again, I brought back in some of that vellum. Again, please be sure to check out Pink Strawberry's channel if you haven't checked it out already. She's amazing. She has so many other tutorials about flip books and flat mail that I'm sure you guys would enjoy, because I've enjoyed them as well. So this one is a flip page, and I just added some lace, some lavender lace, and some vellum, and some of the ephemera. I used one of those leftover pieces, those leftover triangle pieces, to just create an angle pocket there. On this side, I created a tag with a vellum pocket and a larger pocket behind it. So there's a pocket here, this is a tag, and then there's a pocket underneath here for more items. And then I just put this pretty little piece of ephemera that had the lavender colors in it too, so I thought that would be really cute to add here as well. Then over here, I created another tuck spot and just put in a journal card with a little tab pull there. Added some floral ephemera on here, and another piece of ephemera that made into a pocket. This one is a pocket as well that I added some ephemera here. I didn't put anything in here because I just really love that scene with the door, so I really didn't want to cover that up yet. So but that is a pocket there that more journal bits could be added in there, paper, all kinds of things can be added into that pocket. And then here is the back. I used the final word from the paper pack that I had left over on the back here. And then again, I have this envelope pocket. I have a little journal card here to go there. And then of course, this is the envelope, and it has a Velcro dot to keep it closed. And I just put another piece of a little journal paper there as well. And then that closes out, and that is the completed project. So I'll bring in the other one just so that you guys can see they're exactly the same, just decorated a little bit differently. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed this project, and I hope you may be inclined to make one of your own. I would love to hear your comments and suggestions and feedback in the to the video. If you have not subscribed to my channel, I hope you will consider subscribing to my channel. I look forward to crafting with you guys again very, very soon. And thank you again for joining me today. I greatly appreciate all of you all out there who are taking the time to enjoy my videos. Until next time, take care. Bye.